My apologies about the earlier one.
No problem.
Fine.
There you go. Okay. All right, good evening, everyone. It's January 12th, 2016 Fincom meeting. On the agenda tonight is budget updates, as always. Look at what's going on with 2016, see where that is in 2017, all the changes, where we are with the budget plan right now, including capital plan. There's a lot of information there to go through. We have to select a rep to the library site selection committee. I may do that first. And we have a reserve fund transfer request. You got the paperwork and so on for that? Okay. And some minutes. So we'll probably change this agenda around a bit, unless you guys would like to sit through the budget discussion.
You know we like the...
It's all good.
Okay, I'm just going to do the easy one first. Steve can't be here tonight. He's traveling. But we do need to select a representative to the library site selection committee. Steve is already at those meetings anyway because of PMBC, and he has said he would be happy to be our representative. So if someone would like to make a motion or make a different motion, if you so choose, please do so.
I'll make that motion, but I'd like to say something during the
Okay. Discussion?
discussion.
Okay. So there's a motion on the table.
Motion to appoint Steve Moore as our appointee to the library
Selection Commission.
Selection
Site selection. Second that.
Okay, any discussion?
Yes. Now, it is still clear, my understanding is that we have not, or the library has not settled on the need for a new facility, and that a expansion on existing site is still part of the...
That's my understanding.
Okay,
Last
because
I
I just
heard.
thought, in moving to put Steve on there because of his, his specific skill set on the building committee, I hope there wasn't an assumption being made that, since he's in the building committee business, that we were already deciding there was going to be a building to be built.
No, well, even if it's an expansion, there's still
Pretty clear
building
about
going on.
Fine. That's the
That's
point
how I
that I
would
think
view
that
it
needs to be
anyway.
reinforced, that we're not just,
Certainly not.
kind of sliding into
No,
that.
no, not.
Well, the requirement, as I understand it, is that in order to avail the library, in order to avail themselves of a library grant, have to show that they've done a search and looked at renovation and then chosen the best option for the town in order to avail the town of the library grant.
Yeah, their last briefing to us, was along those lines, and as was even as
Right.
far back as when Betsy and I were meeting with the prior library administrator when they were initiating this process. So it's just, when you read Site Selection Committee as the name of the committee, that, sends a little alarm off that somebody's already made that decision, that we've gone from, considering alternatives to deciding.
Yep.
Well, that's a good point. To me, site selection could be the current site. I mean, it's still...
Well, Bonnie,
Deciding.
you were at the selectmen meetings where that was discussed, right? How was it perceived by that, at that time?
In the same context, in the way that Sam presented it, was that the requirement was that the library had to present both a new site and existing site scenarios in order to qualify for the grant. So that's what they're doing to...
So they have to provide a new site scenario?
They have to do that. That may or may not be their desire. So they presented
That's an odd
some...
requirement. Even if you're only looking to do an expansion, you have to say,
Have to, show you looked at other sites. They did present some preliminary drawings that showed the expansion, two different, I think, different expansion possibilities over here, as well as a new building. But
It's really crazy, but that's what they presented.
Well, if we don't like the way it's going, we can always show up en masse at their meetings.
I want to avoid that eventuality, that's all. Just need a vote.
Anything
Yep.
else?
So, any other discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Steve's got it. Thank you. All right. Let's do the reserve fund, and then you guys can, welcome to stay along as much long as you like. Or you can go clear off all our cars before you leave or something like that.
So I printed out the information that you had emailed regarding the cost and the reason why, but you can verbalize that better than me. I did want to just let you know that your reserve fund balance is $150,000. There have been no drawdowns of the reserve fund. The only anticipated one I see at this point is for veterans' benefits. We funded it at the level that we think it will be for fiscal 2017, which will be $170,000. They're funded at $120,000 for fiscal 16, so there may be, upwards of $50,000 that might need to be drawn down for that. But other than that, I don't see any issues today. You're up.
All right, so our defibrillators, we currently have 17 of them. We have one on every piece of fire apparatus, as well as 4 or 5 in the police cruisers. And about 3 months ago, these pieces of equipment, they get daily checks. And about 3 months ago, as we started to go through them, okay, a battery died, and then actually 3 of them died in a row. And all right, let's go purchase the new ones for replacement. That was done, and then so as we started to receive these new batteries at about $400 a whack, they were coming in with a 2015 date of, use by, and the company also notified us that they are no longer servicing these machines any longer. We've had them anywhere from 10 to 15 years, depending on the model, and they've been bulletproof. We have not had any problems with them. Through the different administrations, nobody has put them on their capital plan. Oversight on myself, it was just, they've never failed. It's never been an issue. Batteries fail, buy new ones. So now that we started receiving these new ones that started to also fail, we should be getting 2 to 3 years out of them. One died in 3 weeks. Another one died in
Not good use for
just under 3
$400.
months.
Much less
And
die, does it?
and they're non-refundable. We can't return them because they're batteries and the usage. So as we inquired more about this, yes, they're not servicing these machines anymore. They're old. Several versions have been updated since. And then just about a week and a half ago, 2 went over the weekend from the police department, and another one went on the following Monday. So now we're at a point where we're taking these off of our slower pieces of apparatus to put them in service on other vehicles, mainly the cruisers and our frontline pieces. Because when there's a call for, a cardiac arrest or some event of that nature, you want something that's reliable. The other issue with them is typically when they go into as the battery's running down, there's an alarm on them that would beep and go off and give you warning that the battery's dying. That's not happening. They're silent. They're dead. That's not a good feeling for us. So as we started to research this and talking to the company, the manufacturer, they said, we're sorry. We have nothing to replace that vintage battery or service those machines. And unfortunately, it kind of put us into a mode of, hey, we need to replace these items, and the goal was to hopefully, try to sneak it in as a last-minute capital edition until 3 more of them went over a week ago. So it's a little concerning that all of a sudden these machines are all starting to fail, at a rapid rate. And so this evening I would request. We reached out to the company. It is on state bid. They would give us some additional funding, trade-in allowances for each of the machines, and it would be $31,365 to replace all 17 of the machines that would encompass all of public safety, fire and police. So we would have new defibrillators on all apparatus, and we would put this into the capital plan, so that it's,
Is that the net figure after the trade-in?
yes.
Is that, do you need to replace all 17 now?
They're all the same vintage. So we have had the oldest fail, and we have had the newer models fail, which were in the police cruisers. So that's where even more of a concern.
What's the manufacturer saying the lifespan is of this stuff? I mean, how often it should be upgraded?
I've spoke to other towns, and they're doing them in the 10-year time frame.
So once every 10 years.
So we've gotten 10 to 15 out of them. And, the manufacturer, like I said, is no longer servicing them, so
And they're willing to give you a trade-in value on them?
I'm not,
Not that
Not much.
yeah, right. It's a different manufacturer. So the other, bonus to it for us would, trying to look into the future, if we did go medic at some time in the near future, all of these machines would be compatible with the new system that would be traded, or
Right,
that we
and
would be going to.
the new company you're suggesting to go with is a company that obviously that you guys are really comfortable with. I mean, other fire departments use it, and other towns
Yes.
use them.
That's
not
what
just
the
buying it
paramedics
cheap.
are using right now, and the other abutting towns.
Okay.
And they're on the state bid list, so they've been around a while.
Correct. They are
Well,
state
being
bid.
on the state bid
Well-
list doesn't mean it's not a piece of crap.
Very, very true.
I mean-
So there are other manufacturers on the state bid list, and we're, if that can,
If you guys are comfortable that this is the company you want to go with, then I think we should.
there may be an opportunity that it could be less, but that's the quote right now, including the trade-in.
Okay.
So if you get to go tonight, how long before you get these new machines?
We'll order them tomorrow. They could, I would say, probably the beginning of next week.
I mean, it's serious stuff. Somebody goes out
It
and they
is.
think it's working and it doesn't work. I mean, it can
Absolutely.
be really serious. I mean,
That's why, everyone, they're checking them on a daily basis, and it's a concern. It's
How often are these used? I mean, just curious.
it's weird, because we'll go run the time of the year, we might go 6 months without using it, and then you might use it 3 times in a week.
Yep.
And, it's a roll of the dice, really.
Right, okay.
It's,
getting close to home here?
We need more snowstorms. We're gonna use them more up.
Not until
yeah,
after the
it's
order's
when
placed.
everybody's down shoveling. That's
Yeah,
when we
right.
get all our phone calls.
Right.
Really. And the holidays.
Okay, any other questions?
Well,
Go
I
ahead.
guess a broader question here is, are there other pieces of equipment in your repertoire that we should be looking at that have similar battery kinds of problems? I mean, this is one that flew under the radar because the darn thing's worked for years,
Right.
but we really should have replaced them a couple of years ago, probably.
The other items that are similar to this, they're actually associated with each ambulance. And as each ambulance is replaced, those pieces of equipment are replaced with the ambulance.
Okay, okay.
So that's not,
So
and
this-
like I said, these things have been bulletproof, really. I mean, with just a matter of keeping a stock of batteries, but now that those are not functioning the way they're supposed to, that's our issue.
Okay.
And one more question, so when we bought these, did we buy them all at once? Do we get a better rate by buying them in bulk like this?
Originally, they were, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a chunk of them that were purchased through a grant.
Right.
Right.
And that's when we first implemented having, defibrillators on the apparatus. And then the other batch that was bought for the PD, I think it was another grant.
I believe that most of them were procured through a grant prior to
Well, those
my arrival,
grants.
which was in 2006. So,
Well, when, as each department was beginning, I mean, all of the surrounding communities all were going for defibrillators at the same time. So there was a real big push, back in that 10 to 15-year time range. There were different, promotional things and grants.
Isn't that why we have that Heart Healthy?
It is, actually. When we went, the defibrillators and community CPR and everything like that, right?
That was all part of that.
Yep.
What about the ones in the buildings? I'm just curious now.
Those are new. So those are only a few years, was it?
Maya did that one, right?
COA
Right,
they just
okay.
received theirs a year or two ago.
Yeah, that was my question, was what about, we got one in several in every building in town, so.
Yep, right. Yeah, those are much newer.
And who has a responsibility to keep track of it?
Like, for instance, the school department maintains them.
So who
Do you guys check the ones here, or?
checks them?
No, not at this point. Like, I replaced the battery in the one in the hall here this fall. I got a call last summer that, hey, it's making noise. It came up and says, you need a battery. But I don't, that would be something we probably need to discuss with Bill.
Yeah.
We,
Bill
as a
Cole
rule, we don't
typically-
come up and, we don't make it a tour of checking the defibrillators. And this building, like, for instance, the schools, if they open the cabinet, it sends an alarm to us. But when they get an audible alarm, then we get a call from the school to come down and shut the alarm off so they can go in and repair it, and they do all the work themselves.
Might be good, though, just to have the inventory of just where they are in town, just who has them and where they are, so if somebody
We
needs them.
definitely know where they are.
Oh, you do know where they are?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We know where
Okay.
in all of the other facilities, when they open it, it trips our fire alarm system in the station. So we know when they open the door to pull out a defibrillator,
Okay.
we're automatically on the road for
Okay.
a potential cardiac arrest. And it's usually followed up with a phone call that we receive, just as we're arriving usually, to say that, yes.
Do we know how old they are? I mean, if we're replacing 17, should we be replacing 19? I don't know. Do we have two more
the
going to
only-
die, or do we have other good ones out around town?
I believe, though, all of the ones that are in the schools, they're in that, probably in the 5 to 10 range. The only ones that don't have them that I'm aware of is the highway department. We're trying to work on that right now. They have had, unfortunately, a cardiac arrest within their department.
Okay.
And they do need one at the transfer station for the, one of their auditors required that they have the training and have a defibrillator on site. So we were currently trying to work and figure out how we could do that. If you wanted to lump two more in that, I'm sure Jimmy Cladd would be thrilled. One for the highway department and one for the transfer facility.
Well,
But that's
Not
up
an
to you guys.
emergency.
yeah.
It's not an emergency at that
Speaks to the
point.
point I was just about to raise. I mean, I think the merit of the case here has been made, and the solution proposed is something I have no problem with. The other threshold, reserved fund transfer request is it of an emergency nature that couldn't have been planned for? I'd say it is. So I'm not opposed to using this money for that. The bigger questions that are on the table now, I think that's part of a planning process that ought to go into both a review for, I don't know, how we do it holistically across the town, but, there ought to be a process for
Right.
both accounting for it in the capital program and for checking them.
Right, I mean, there ought to be somebody responsible to manage them.
Right.
I mean,
So-
so you don't go to the cabinet and find out the damn thing doesn't work.
Right.
Right. Yeah, I know for the schools, Bill Maher has been addressing them when they need their batteries. They purchase them and check them, but
Okay.
honestly, I don't know if they have like a monthly log
Isn't that,
sheet.
don't you participate in some sort of townwide emergency preparedness thing that, I mean, from time to time, that involves you guys and everybody, police, schools, whatever? I mean, couldn't it just be included in the list of topics you could cover there, or?
We talk, when we have monthly safety and security meetings with each principal, and we talk about it at those meetings.
But that's just at the schools, right?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
There's not like a, emergency, I mean.
Like an LAPC type, or a local area planning committee
Well,
type of.
we
You
have
know, like
a,
FEMA for Littleton.
Yeah. It used to be Doug Cook a million years ago.
Well, and
but-
that's emergency
Lima,
management.
Lima, right.
And that's our MRC insert.
Right.
And we meet on a regular basis with them, but not as far as doing, checking different facilities, defibrillators. It's kind of that's each facility's responsibility. That's their piece of
I'm
equipment.
just looking for a way so it doesn't get lost through the cracks, I mean.
Oh, no, I understand.
Don't need to
Absolutely.
invent something new, just something existing ought to just, include it on their list.
Yeah.
We can bring it up at the department meetings that we have each month, and you can just schedule some time about it.
Yep. Yeah, we can at least discuss it for, the public buildings, it doesn't address the nursing home
Used to
or,
years ago.
Well, not,
I mean,
Yeah.
It's on the private side, we can't.
even like Market
Not
Basket,
expected.
there's a defibrillator, and, all of the new facilities, most of them have a defibrillator in their restaurants and stuff like that. It's
office
becoming-
buildings have them now, so
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, they're common. They're becoming more and more common everywhere.
The application's the same no matter what brand you buy.
Right.
What we have now in town is the schools have different ones that we do. The police had a different version of ours. We had one battery for the police defibrillators, one battery for ours. There's similar ones in here now, but if you were to go out and say, let's find a community grant and purchase, if we need, all of a sudden you look and say, we could use 2 for highway and 10 more here, and here, and we can apply for a community grant, because that's an easy, because that benefits the entire community, and that's one way to approach it, where you say, the ones that are in here now are serviceable, but if we had all the same brand everywhere, then you're easier to, you keep them all, here comes an upgrade, and we know, hey, in 5 years, we can no longer get that one serviced. Where if the schools are using these, and we're using this brand, and everybody's using a different one, and we're gonna go into some type of capital program, that's not gonna be a smooth way to transition to, because like I said, it doesn't really matter on the brand, because the application's the same. The school department can apply the same one we're using. It's 2 pads and push a button. That's all you have to do on them. But I think that would be a good way to approach that, is on top of a comprehensive program of who has what brand do they have, and how old is it, and when do we need to replace it?
I don't think we should hold your program up.
No.
I think the ambulances, you guys and police need to have them in your vehicles. But I do think, I'd like, and maybe we ask you, as the emergency guy in town, to come back with a plan for the town. And see what we can do and get it into the capital planning cycle, so we don't have to worry about them not working.
And some general information, so if people are replacing them, that they're getting the same brand, so just because it makes it easier for maintaining it.
just-
So, little things like that, just make people aware. It's almost an awareness thing, probably, as much
Yeah,
as
within the
anything.
town, you buy this defibrillator, this AED.
Yep. Okay.
I have one more question. The models that you're purchasing, how long have they been in the marketplace? Meaning, is the shelf life, are they relatively new? Are they, the shelf life 3-4 years old?
Oh, of the units
Of the
themselves?
units that you're buying, yeah.
They're brand new.
But
That-
the model is,
The
Physio.
the version of the model.
See, that's a good question. The real difference is the physio, like for instance, Physio Controls, the one we have the quote on. We utilize the compression device we bought from them, so they're a leader in cardiac monitors. Another reason we look at them is the brand we use now. If we have a patient that's unresponsive when we put our pads on, and Pro shows up, and they bring in their monitor, which can also shock a patient, we have to take our pads off and put theirs on, because ours isn't compatible. So they all work the same, they deliver the same amount of joules, but Physio Control is a well-known leader in cardio research and that type of thing. So this would be, if that's the brand we go with, and the other one we looked at was Zoll, and Zoll's another one that's...
I'm very familiar with Zoll.
So,
I work with them.
they're all, you're not going to find one that's, yeah, this is the latest and greatest. It's just really kind of like what we're dealing with now, is we're kind of using Windows 95. And it's getting harder to find people that'll work on it.
That's my
It really
point.
is.
My point is, are you buying Windows 98, but it's brand new, and then you're like, well, hey,
No, the battery
2 years from
technology's
now
so much better.
it's gone.
Yeah.
All
That's
that
my
way.
point.
They can only deliver so many joules of electricity to try to restart the heart. So they're all, that technology's all the same, pretty much. These aren't real high tech. No,
It's the batteries.
that's exactly it.
That's the
It is.
the lithium batteries that are in
It's
them.
an issue.
The big thing. So now, the program that you're going with this company, do they have a maintenance program for these batteries?
They do.
Like they'll refresh them for you
Well,
every couple of years? or something?
nobody refreshes anything without a price.
Well, yeah, you buy a
So-
maintenance contract.
You can buy a maintenance contract, but honestly, these machines are, similar to the brand, similar to the company we had. They've been around for a long time, and the other towns the other communities that have these, it's a tried and true machine. So you replace the batteries and move on. And, they're all relatively bulletproof, just like the ones that would be replacing. 10 to 15 years, we haven't had an issue. And that's the reliability of them.
Great. You want to make a motion?
I think the motion needs to include the account number and the dollar amount, right?
Get the dollar
Tom,
amount.
you get to make the motion. You're holding it.
Oh, don't put
You're the
Are we gonna put him up for that?
You want to help me with this? This is my first time. You're on your own.
Make a motion that we approve the reserve fund transfer request in the amount of blank.
The amount of blank for this. All right, in the amount of $31,365 to account number 120,
220.
100-220 for AED units failing.
What, 8 or A?
AED, yeah, units failing, product line no longer supported.
Second.
And there's 17 units were. And there's, 17. It's not written in here, but.
Second.
Any other discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, you got it.
Thank you very much.
Order tomorrow.
Sign these things.
I'll do an inventory of all the buildings, and I'll come back at a different meeting and say,
Thanks.
yeah, this is, based on what I found, this is what we should look at. Time.
As a management issue, I'm not sure we're the right people to receive it, just for, financial planning, but somebody, it ought to go with, Keith and Bonnie or whatever.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
like this meeting, though. I like this. No, fine.
Tom gets his money. He's happy.
This is low stress, right?
Yes and
But seriously, I think there are two things. One is, what do we have out there, and when would you expect them to have to be replaced? And number two, where else should they be in town, and why?
Right.
And,
Yeah.
as a presentation, and that comes here, or a selectman, or wherever, but we should get it on the plan.
It may be something that, we may want to make some type of a policy where, we would maintain them all for all of the municipal facilities in town, instead of each facility on their own.
Yeah, whatever, whatever makes the most sense from an efficiency standpoint. You have one bank of batteries, and, instead of everybody having batteries in their buildings and all that silliness.
So is the idea that someone is already trained in how to use these things, or somehow if somebody's having a problem, this is how you do it on the box, and you just do
So-
it? You don't need to be trained necessarily?
Not only does that machine, it talks to you, it'll talk you through it. If you've never touched it before, you could open it up, hit the power button, and it will tell you what to do, and there are pictures on the pads that show you where to put them. Beyond that, which I can announce, because just this afternoon, I received in the mail the announcement for the award for the Safer and the Senior Safe program again this year, so it's just under $6,000, just under $6,000, just over $6,000 that we received for.
To do what?
For public education.
Oh, okay.
So they do the smoke detector, smoke and CO for seniors. We purchase the detectors, and we come in, analyze your home, and it's been amazing good. We've done almost 100 homes and installed detectors, of which so many of the seniors don't even have any
them.
detection.
Wow.
No. Which is amazing in this day and age. So that, part of that money funds that.
And you provide the detectors?
Zero cost, yep. So we purchase those with that grant money. Yep. And then also, we do the public education in school. They do from kindergarten through 6th grade, different variations of, the stop, drop, and roll, smoking cigarettes, and all the, prevention. And then in high school, was it 8th, 10th, and 12th grade, we do CPR and defib. So they are all, they will graduate with awareness at the awareness level and be able to do that. And they do, all of the teachers have been certified, I think except for Shaker Lane, and that's coming up. So we're on the second round of refreshers with CPR and defibrillator training. And then we also do it to multiple companies in town as well. So, that's where we also received a generous donation from DCU recently. So that all goes towards the SAFE program and the funding of that in our public education. So that training alone is going community-wide, and as far as defibrillator training, so everybody that gets out of school now will know how to do CPR and will know how to use a defibrillator.
They won't know how
It's
to make
actually-
change, but they can use a defibrillator.
So just a matter of,
Recipe for us, but
yeah.
some of them
As
are
a-
bilingual, you can open them up and they'll speak Spanish.
The school committee just recently adopted that as one of the requirements to graduate. So
Right.
all,
That's great.
everybody that graduates will have that
really
as
good.
part of their education.
Good, excellent. All righty.
Thank you.
right.
Thanks for coming, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for everything. You guys did a great job.
So we'll keep it in the,
Okay,
thank you, though.
all right. Now we'll cut over to Bonnie and budget stuff.
Take one and pass it on. So I did review this information with the selectmen last night, so I'm happy to go through it this evening. What I want to do is go through the budget and the capital plan. I did draft a first pass at a capital plan for fiscal 2017, just for discussion purposes. You'll feel free to rip it apart and change it if you think it's necessary. But I will start with the budget process. Not much has changed since the last meeting and the last update. I am still not in receipt of the school department detail budget. However, Mike Fontanella did email me on Friday, and he apologized for the delay and said that I would have the details this week. So I'm hopeful that I will have the detailed budget shortly.
Very soon.
Yes, for your review. But I will follow up this week. So just to go through any of the changes,
Excuse me.
we have a, let's see, budget plan, here we go. Memo, here we go. We have three different scenarios that I have presented here for this evening. There's the level staffing budget, which we've discussed in the past. The level staffing budget on the town side, no staffing increases, no extra hours, no new programming. I am holding an assumption for the school department budget of $690,000 to cover a level staffing scenario. Until I get the detail, I don't know that that actually would be a level staffing scenario. But with that estimate in, there's a surplus of $254,555. It would fund all of the contractual obligations on the town side, to include steps and COLAs. The second scenario is a town-level staffing budget and a school-level service budget, which is what they had presented in the last meeting. That budget is requested with an increase of $1.2 million, just over $1.2 million, or 7.23% increase. If I put that figure into the budget scenario, I have a net budget deficit of $303,000. The final scenario is the town mission budget, or the budgets at the department's level that they feel best meets the needs of the community, and the school level service, which shows a deficit of $1,690,000. And again, these are all estimates.
So in the, neither A nor B have police increases or
No,
the ambulance
no,
increases?
no,
Okay, so, okay.
correct. The C budget would have the 15, employee increase overall across all the departments that we had
That's
discussed.
The fire department's proposal to go paramedic?
Yes,
And everything else.
and everything else.
And
The
everything else.
increases in council on aging, the
Yeah.
increases in
No,
highway, the
I just
increases
want-
in,
Just want to be sure that one was in there.
it is in there, yes.
But that doesn't represent, at least in your projections, a impact on the deficit, or does it, the fire one? Just to talk about that specifically.
It would also include, yes, that would be incorporated in the deficit. It would.
Well,
But I'm saying
they're presenting it as
presented as a
being-
self-funded.
Right.
But not the first
Not the
year.
first year.
Not the first year,
There
okay.
is an impact the first
Right,
year,
yeah.
and they're saying that
revenue comes in.
the revenue would then cover them for the second year.
Okay.
So there's that 1 year gap that we have
Okay,
to cover.
all right.
Correct.
Just one question on the process here was, this is obviously the proper place to start, but was there much discussion from the selectmen about finding places within these guys? I mean, it's not going to be likely at the end of the day A or B or C. It's going to be somewhere
Some
between
hybrid.
B and C,
Right.
Choices are going to have to be made. Is that process taking place at all?
A plus is
Yeah.
what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
They,
B and C are both deficits, so it's gonna have to be
Right.
between A and B, or A, yeah.
Well,
A
I
to
mean,
C.
we always find ourselves in a deficit position at this point of the game, but,
they have not started to call the budget yet.
Yeah.
What they're looking for is to get the numbers, the detailed figures from the school department so that they can better address all of that. Because that's, over half of the budget, so that's,
Right.
it's a big number to get
You
through.
keep in touch with the school department at all since your initial conversation?
we have, not since they made the last presentation that we were all present for. I mean, it's the same sort of hibernation over the holidays. But I mean, having heard what, Bonnie had just said, it's probably a good time for Tom and I to go back and sit down with him over the detailed proposal too. So maybe we should try and do that.
Let's see. So based on the current projections, the town has an additional $1.8 million, just over $1.8 million in available funds in fiscal 17 over 16, and it's a slightly more than 4% increase in available resources. So any increase crafted needs to fit within, that or a lower number.
So even the A level staffing uses $1.6 million
Correct.
of it.
Yes.
So we're already spending $1.6 million level staffing and including a 4% increase for the schools.
People are expensive.
So, I mean, that's, just, again, for Tom, a couple of new guys, just, that's sort of the.
Well, it is important, because when you read the way, you have an additional 1.8 million, so, oh, great.
Sounds great.
But
Right.
most of that is just
Already
standard,
spent.
Just
the
gone away.
standard
You
raises.
need $1.5 million to tread water.
Exactly.
Right, so, once you sort of get to that point, then you can say, okay, now do you go the other million, where the heck do we go for the rest of it? Yeah.
When we were looking at this a few months ago, we were talking about FY17 using level staffing format, we would probably have a surplus. But that in 18, looking at level staffing getting to 18, we were already looking at a deficit.
With the
So
revised-
anything within that million is something you say we have to play with, that we add in there, especially with bodies and programs,
Correct.
you're going to have to pay for that again next year.
Right, it's the gift that keeps on giving. Right now, with the level staffing scenario, and I'll kind of get into this a little bit after, but within the level staffing scenario, and if I just take that and roll it forward, we don't have deficits until fiscal '20. The reason that we don't is because of the unprecedented amount of new growth that we have. And I will say, most of that growth is in residential properties right now. It's not in the commercial. There's a significant amount in commercial, but
Because
it's
we just
outweighed
had a
by...
reval.
It's not reval, it's new projects. These are new housing units coming online.
Oh, okay.
The values have gone up significantly with
Yes.
reval.
That doesn't
the
add to
market
the
values.
revenue, though.
No.
Right.
No,
I
that
noticed.
just- Yes, they do.
Adds to our bill, but doesn't add to our revenue somehow.
How does that work?
The value goes up and the rate goes down.
Someone else is going down.
And
Commercial properties.
And that's why I keep asking the schools when they come in, what is their head count projection? Because, the new developments around town have got to be bringing more kids in. And if they are, then that says more teachers, and you've got to have places to put more teachers. So one of these days, at one of the schools, we're going to have to look at bricks and mortar. And nowhere on the planning horizon is there
Expansion.
any
Well,
planning.
but the other
done for
side of that, I mean, all those houses are going to be bringing more kids in, but you also have more and more people wanting to stay here after their kids are grown. And so you've got some going out the other side too. They say, the town of Littleton, the aging, all the demographics are, we're going to age.
Right.
So there is some, so, well, I don't know.
Yeah,
but
not every new
we
house in
need
Littleton
to
is
keep
going
asking.
to a family with kids. It's a kind of a mix. And I think
I
the
just think the
schools
people
did.
staying. I mean,
Yeah, that too.
I'm
but-
still here. I
But
don't have any
even
kids anymore in school
new
anymore.
purchases, you got people leaving town once their kids graduate from a school in Lexington, Concord, and move
Oh,
here.
yeah, to us, we're downsizing, we're
Right.
downgrading, right, yeah, exactly.
But also, I think the schools, it's one of our meetings, I don't know if it was the November meeting or subsequent, spoke to that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Even in the case of the Great Road development, their projections for new students out of that are now less than they originally thought they were going to be, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I
You
think-
still have fire and police
Oh,
issues.
yeah.
Well, to me, that's the other part of this discussion. The new growth, the additional revenue isn't free. I mean, there's more people, and so more services are required, and so,
Typically, residential tax is a loser.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
And they, the Board of Selectmen allocated 6 liquor licenses, to the point.
Yeah, that's going to put a big strain.
That, and they ought to just run a toll booth across to the police
Just park
station,
somebody.
right? You pass a
Get some
breathalyzer
DUIs
test, or you
That's more revenue for us.
There you go.
Well, it is convenient having the point right across the street. So
Right.
You mentioned the demographics on the school side. I know that part of the management of the school population, they've held steady at I think it's 1,600 some odd students,
it's the
But
choice, right.
the actual Littleton student population has been declining, and it's closer, it was closer to 1,500. And then there's
More
school
school choice,
choice is
huh?
used
Adding
to
more school
manage
choice
that,
in, yeah.
and use the resources, and, keep things steady. So that's going to be an important tool to, now that we're getting the population,
Right,
it's another.
Yeah, they
piece of
trim
the
that a
But the
little at the
last-
lower grade levels, because once they're in, you can't
Right.
boot them out.
Right.
But they can manage the entry.
Correct.
Yeah.
But the new growth in town for the last 6 or 7 years has been relatively stagnant. It's been 100 grand to 200 grand a year.
Yeah, it's been a few hundred thousand, and then this is
And,
just,
you take the point out of it, and you look at the next couple of years, the big piece of new growth is residential. So just, by definition, you're going to have, even if it's just a blip, they're going to be coming in. So I predict, and it'll be what it'll be, but I predict we're going to be having some discussions in 2 years that we're going to need X teacher and Y teacher and Z teacher.
Well, part of what they're requesting this year is to address,
Right, a
that.
couple of that, right? The class sizes.
Yeah, I think it was 2 additional teaching staff, right?
Right,
2.5, I think.
2.5?
Yeah.
yep, so,
well, do the
Okay.
current structures support that growth?
yep. Okay,
Yep.
enough said.
There was a very preliminary discussion on, to address budgeting below the property tax levy limit. As I said, in scenario 1, there is a surplus of $254,000. So some discussion was looked to be scheduled on, should that amount be raised or not? So what I did is I just, brought in the financial policies as they stand today. They can be revised and readdressed, but as they stand today, typically any funds that would be remaining like that would be allocated to OPEB, or our other post-employment benefits costs, which is mostly health insurance for retirees, because we haven't reached our annual required contribution amount, or ARC. We typically allocate, between $800,000 and $900,000 a year. We should be doing closer to $3 million, based on the demographics within our retiree system. So we're not near the ARC yet, but, so that would be what we would normally do if we followed the policies to the letter. I also brought in the adopted financial policy section on the tax levy, and it just references that keeping the tax levy stable in prior years has been the goal, to raise the amount so that if there were excess levy capacity, just as an example, say this $250,000 were not raised, and then next year, the board decided, we're going to raise 2.5 and we're going to raise that. You can. And that creates a tax increase of 2.5 plus. And that's all, that's a legitimate use. Any board of selectmen can, choose to do that or not, in town meeting. But those are some of the issues that were brought up in the past in reviews of the financial policies. So in looking through what the instructions are per se under the policy, all reserve levels would need to be met as outlined in the policy, which are, we appropriate money to our stabilization funds as we need to, we keep our reserves intact at the levels that are currently mandated. The structural deficit, the financial forecast needs to take into an account, with the excess levy being removed, any structural deficits. Currently, we don't have any structural deficits from 2017 to 2019. So in theory, that could be, okay, that is using my level staffing figures. So it's the $690,000 I have in place for the school, it's the level staffing scenarios on the town side. I don't know that that will hold through, but it's what's in the projection right now at this point.
Okay, but that's unrealistic. Whether you believe the chief of police needs 3 officers or 1 officer. One of these years, he's going to need, in the next 3 or 4 years, he's going to need some more officers. Fire, we're going to end up probably doing the, not the EMT, the
Paramedic.
paramedic level. Short term, that's going to cost us something. So the 254 is just isn't realistic.
Well, go ahead, continue on.
And then the town would need to reach and maintain funding for the OPEB and pension liabilities at the ARC that I mentioned before, which is not met for this fiscal year or any of the other years going forward. So that just shows what the financial policies have in place today to address that. Other budgetary topics. As I said, I'm still not in possession of the school department budget, so I don't have a very good analysis of what the available resources against the needs are. I did provide, again, the school reserve balances as they were at the end of last fiscal year, and the proposed use of just over $1 million for 2016. So we'll need to see if that $1 million projected use is still holding true for this fiscal year, or whether they think they might spend more of it or less.
So that million is included in the way you've set the budget up, the level staffing budget?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Revenue projections, I did put in the new growth calculations that we're using in the next few fiscal years. These are based on projects that are currently in the pipeline with the planning board and through the building department. So we've done a pretty comprehensive review of projects that are in process. For fiscal 17, I'm fairly confident that the $1.1 million will be the accurate number, but again, it could be modified depending on if the hotel comes on later, than projected or earlier, if some housing developments change their timelines with their financing and, depending on sales. $689,000 in growth for 18, $565 for 19, and back to the normalized levels of $300,000 for 20 and 21. $300,000 is our typical normal level in prior 10 years.
So for those 4 out years, 18 and 19, the reason those are higher is because of what, known projects above?
Known projects that are, there's phases for different projects that we have in permitting process right now, so if we push those out and, we know
So the
what the developers
$300,000 norm is what had been established up to a couple of years ago?
Yeah, it's like the 5-year
kinda.
rolling average.
All right, so that in fact could change too, or will change from year to year, we just don't know.
Right.
But, okay, I just want to understand the logic.
Yep.
Have another 2008, and it all goes away the way it did.
Right. We are projecting a 1% growth in local receipts. I did really tweak the local receipts this year. We had a large increase in excise tax revenues. We have more people, we have newer vehicles, excise is up. I also have projections in there for the projects at the point for meals excise tax, because there's more restaurants up there. We get more meals tax revenue, and room tax. Now, that's projected at $100,000 for next year. It's a brand-new revenue calculation. So if that project comes on late, I'm going to need to modify that number.
When's it supposed to come on?
The last that I heard was September open.
It's the way the law-
Refresh my memory what that means. What percentage are we adding to the
It's
room
like
tax?
0.75 for meals, and room is 4%? I think it's either 4 or 6.
4, 6 for lodging?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's interesting, though. If you're expecting 100,000 if they open in September, then the full year number then that's significant money.
It can be.
Wow.
It's
Depends on the
difficult.
occupancy rate, though.
Well,
I bet you
that-
they'll be full as soon as they're open, I would guess.
I know my daughter was hoping it was going to be open in time for graduation.
Yeah. The last I heard, they were shooting for September. And, they're making a lot of progress from what I see, but
What's it, a 120 room?
I can't
Hotel?
remember. I can't remember off the
That's
top of my
about the
head.
norm that they're building these days.
It's difficult to get, it's interesting, trying to get calculations on what that might look like, because DOR has all of the information from other communities' room excise. However, they won't give you the room excise for communities that have less than 3 hotels, because it gives you too much information into the
Hotel.
hotel's financials. So they won't give it to you.
Well,
So
plus-
I went to Boxborough, I tried to dig through their stuff, and they, nobody gives any data.
It's all over the place too, 'cause I mean, you got different room rates, different times of the year,
Exactly.
weekends.
Different facilities,
You're gonna have to just get some time into that before you can really hone that number.
So I have that in there, but it could change depending on their timeline. Municipal state aid, both, actually, school and municipal state aid, I have flat. It has been flat for the last 4 years. Last year, we actually, for fiscal 16, we're collecting less than we did in 15 because the state aid went up a little bit, but the assessments went up more. And the state nets those two figures against each other before they mail me my check. So, I'm not hearing any noise about reductions. I'm hearing that they want to maintain state aid, but no increases to date.
Any word on Neshoba kids, number of kids?
Slight increase. I did modify the Neshoba tech assessment
Okay.
based on the revised numbers, so from like 31 to 33
Okay.
with the preliminary numbers, so just a smaller increase was,
In Minuteman, we're done?
I
Or is
believe
it
we're
this
done. I
year?
haven't heard anything. I think this is the last year. I haven't
Okay,
heard.
good.
I'm hoping no
Bring it
more.
up, Fred.
That's good.
People know that.
I'm hoping no more to win, but.
Hey.
Let's see. On the expense side, I have 3% growth in town department budgets, which is made up primarily by assumptions for the steps and COLAs that are due through the contractual obligations. That averages out to the 3%. 0% increase on operating expenses, which may, again, be unrealistic depending on what we have going forward. I have a 3.1% average growth in the school appropriations starting for 18 to 21. I have a 4% increase for 17. And 11.78% growth in fringe or employee benefits costs. That's primarily through health insurance. So that's a pretty conservative number. Our enrollment has finally started to plateau. For many years, we just saw increasing enrollment because on the private sector, there's more of an ability to push people off plans if there are plans offered to a spouse. They can say, you have to go take your spouse's plan. I don't have that luxury. I can't do the same thing, so I have to take everybody. But we finally kind of seen a plateau, and I think a lot of that has to do with the staffing. We've kept a level staffing as much as we could on the town side, so that helps.
Why don't you have that ability to do what the private sector does?
It's just the way that the statute reads, yeah.
Wow.
Not fair, but.
No, it's not.
Well, and the problem too is the town's health plan is richer than most private sector health plans now.
Correct.
Significantly.
That's true.
So maybe you need to make the health plans a little less robust.
Would you like to be on the collective bargaining? I'll put your name down. Let's see, so, using these assumptions, and again, starting with the level staffing budget that I have in place for 2017, which may or may not be realistic, the deficits start appearing in 20 at 436,000 and continue through 21 at $1,093,000. I have to say, that sounds like a horrible number, and it is, but this is the best that we have been financially at this point in the budget process. So, I'm usually doom and gloom, and I try not to vary from that too much, but this is as best I've seen.
But the reality is still, if this growth comes, some of it comes at a cost.
It comes at
And
a
so you can't do level staffing, zero increase in operational costs forever and ever and ever. I mean, so.
And, to carry that out, these are scenarios, these assumptions on expenses can be modified. If these are assumptions that we've been using for a number of years, if it's time to say, you know what, we need to factor in a 1% or 2% increase in operating expenses, I'm happy to push that out into the spreadsheets and show you what that looks like. So feel free to, make suggestions. The wages are what they are. We know those contractual obligations, so those are numbers that I wouldn't really feel comfortable modifying other than additions to staff, if you want to see what some of those look like. So, that being said, I welcome any suggestions or input. And then what I did is I just printed the three different scenarios that I had discussed, the level staffing, the town level staffing, the school level service, and then the town mission and the school level service, just so you can see the different categories in detail. And I have, you know, a lot of other information in detail if you want to see it. If you don't, it's
Where are
a tiny,
we?
tiny font.
Where are we on the road plan?
Actually, we're making some progress. We have I think Street Scan is the company that we contracted with to go out and actually do an assessment of our roadways, and they've conducted that. They've actually provided us with a list of the worst roads by, you know, pavement condition and that type of information. What we need to do is we're going to have a meeting at the staff level that Keith is arranging with Jimmy Clyde and myself to figure out a couple of different suggestions for the Board of Selectmen to look at their meeting, I think in February. I think it's going to be February 8th, is when we're going to have the update. To say, you know, these might be the worst conditioned roads, but are they the most important to address? They
Yeah,
might be the
because-
worst condition and nobody drives on them.
That's right.
You
Traffic
know,
makes a difference.
So we need to figure out, you know, what's going to be a priority for the Board of Selectmen in going forward. Once we craft that list, it's just a matter of me pumping the dollars through it and figuring out, you know, how that shakes out in the roadway plan.
The 110 Bruce Street intersection thing that's going on, what's the town's end of that?
That's a state road, so we will not have any funding obligation towards that project. The Mass DOT is already looking at that, and in the meeting, at the Selectmen's meeting last night, the representatives from AIR, the AIR Board of Selectmen, also attended. And they jointly went to Mass DOT and provided them with the traffic count information. Basically, what I remember out of the meeting last night is that it was rated as an F intersection many years ago. It still is an F intersection, however, it's, you know, worse, if that's possible.
F minus?
Yes. So the sense of the board's communication with Mass DOT was that this was going to be a priority, that they were kind of horrified at the numbers that were shown, but between the traffic counts, the accidents, the lines of sight, and the issues, they realized that
There are a
this-
lot of trucks.
Yes.
Yeah, it makes it worse,
That's
exactly.
what makes
That
it
little
worse.
truck parking area out there doesn't help matters at all, you
Right.
know?
So they did have some slides, and I know that it's on the website, showing the draft signalization, you know, of what it might look like when Mass DOT gets
Yeah.
through looking at it. But from what, you know, all of the boards said last night, they were pleased that Mass DOT was kind of fast-tracking this as much as they could. They realized it was a poor intersection.
So what does that mean, fast track?
Usually it takes 5 years.
Really?
Anything done. Yeah, so they were, you know, hoping